Hello and welcome to another elizaOS Builder demo session. If you're joining us today, you're going to learn a little bit about a community builder. We have a Reveel team who has built an agent called Reva. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you both here. I think just before we kick things off into the demo, would you both be up for introducing yourself, sharing a little bit around maybe what led you to start the project and all that good stuff in between?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Ken, thanks for having us on. I'm Adrian. I'm the founder and CEO of Reveel. We're the builders behind Reva. And we've been like exploring sort of stablecoin payments for a while. I've got a bunch of stories of why I think stablecoins are so interesting. But to give you just a little bit of an insight on my previous life, I worked in banking and fintech, but before that, I was a professional musician and produced a bunch of artists. And I remember having to like send a royalty check to an artist that was in Jamaica and having to use like Western Union. And the cost of sending the check was like more than the check itself. And so I always thought payments had to be innovated on and we had to bring some solution. And stablecoins came about. And so very excited for what they will enable in the global payment space.
Nice. And I guess, what are you interested in, or maybe also not interested in, at this kind of intersection of AI and stablecoins? What do you think is hot, and what do you think maybe not is?
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into details of that, but for me, AI is a new user interface in a way, and I think with new interfaces, we see a lot of disruption in terms of the products and services that we use. We saw that from when the web arrived, and then from web to mobile, and I think now from mobile to AI, we're going to see similar shifts. And combining that with like stablecoin rails becoming more broadly adopted, I think those two things together create just like this magic moment where there's going to be a lot of disruption and a lot of innovation in this space.
Awesome. Yeah,
Right.
I'm looking forward to learning more. And Tirtha, yeah, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Tit. I'm the lead engineer from Reveel. So about the product of Reva, like we have been exploring on payment infrastructure products for quite some time over the past years, and I would say like over a year we really got into the AI stacks and to find the sweet spots of AI and crypto and to understand like what are the best kind of innovation solutions that can happen to bring the both worlds together. And eventually, as we were going through exploring products in the AI space and understanding what kind of UX troubles users are mostly facing. So within that intersection, somehow there was a brainstorm moment when we thought, okay, this is an avenue we can explore, and this is something we would definitely like to build upon and start growing. So today, definitely, Adrian will walk you guys through a demo later. But this is something I would say really phenomenal and brings a lot of complex systems into one single hood. And we'll talk about more about this later.
And you folks have been building on the framework for months now. You've got your own plugin, which you've developed,
Yeah.
which you'll share more around next week. But that plugin obviously enables the functionality of the stablecoin payments. That's not a kind of simple thing to put together. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more around that. And on that note, for anybody just joining, what we will be doing today is running through a presentation, an introduction from the Reveel team, and then moving into a live demonstration of the agent that they've built. This is, I think you released this last week to the market. I saw your post, or maybe even this week.
Yeah, brand new.
Yeah, and you've been working on this since, I'm going to say late last year.
Yeah, I think we started exploring the Eliza framework end of last year as we were building PayID, which is our like backend infra. So super excited to bring the Reva AI to market now.
Yeah, it's amazing having a front row seat on all of this at a personal level, and it's amazing to share this with everyone listening. Yeah, super big privilege. And on that note, I'm going to bring up your slides, and I'll stay quiet, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, sounds good. And I just want to make sure I can go through them here. Okay, I can. Yeah, so indeed, we're building Reva AI. The team behind it is Reveel, but the goal for us is really how do we bring peer-to-peer payments into sort of the age of AI and AI native types of products. And so that's very much what we've been focused on with this specific product. Very quickly about the team, we come from both TradFi and DeFi. I worked at BNP Paribas doing digital transformation, and then in fintech at Deloitte Digital Ventures, and during my MBA. I'll let you speak a bit about your experience as well.
Yeah, so I have been working in the DeFi and crypto space for over 7 years now, mostly highly focused around developing smart contracts and payment infra. I have worked with products to build microfinance institutions within the Web3 space. And also, I also love to generate like technical content in the space to do developer education. So that's another direction that I love to do. Also, I have been contributing in the Web3 security space for over 3 years now. I have been part of the Yearn Finance security institution team called Y Academy. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, and the rest of the team also has a lot of experience in both TradFi and DeFi. Fernando built products for big banks, Santander, BBVA. Harriet also comes from TradFi and then was at MetaMask, and Aldo is our product lead. He's a serial founder. In total, we're 9. It's been a fun experiment to grow together. But I think what's probably more interesting to all of you is like how we think about the evolution of payments. And I think there are 3 like big trends that we're excited about. The first one is a bit more of a user behavior type of trend, which is that we're realizing that especially younger generations are creating a lot of friendships directly online. And you see this in like gamer communities, developer communities of people who literally make friends online, and that's how they interact, right? And so with that, we feel like there's going to be a shift in terms of the needs for payments tools and for those tools to be embedded into the different platforms that people use. And so embedded finance, embedded payments, I think is one big theme or trend, if you will, that will continue to grow. The second is obviously AI, as we were saying in the beginning of the conversation. I think AI is changing the way we're going to interface with technology. And as a new type of UI comes the opportunity to launch new products that are native to that UI. And so we very much see Reva AI as sort of an AI native peer-to-peer payment solution. And last but not least, stablecoins are obviously changing the way we send money around. They're the new global payments rails. And with that sort of ability to do real-time payments globally, you can bring in those trends from embedded finance and AI to create a really smooth experience that is global. And so our prediction is that in a couple years, most of the peer-to-peer transactions will be executed within third-party products that are not necessarily like financial products, wallets, fintechs, banks, but maybe games, social media, messaging platforms, etc. So that's really what we've been building around. Yeah, maybe I'll just say one point around why stablecoins are the future of payments, but it's mainly due to the fact that peer-to-peer payments and like direct account-to-account or person-to-person transaction is growing and taking a lot of market share in sort of the overall payment space. We see that a lot in emerging countries like Brazil or Pix, where Brazil or India, where infrastructure like Pix or UPI have been taking a lot of market share. And with stablecoins, you can enable that at a global stage. There is, however, one big problem with stablecoins and payments in general, which is that it's super fragmented. In Web 2 payments, you're usually locked within the walled gardens of an application, and that might be a Venmo, that might be a Cash App or whatnot. And it's very hard to transact with someone who's outside of that walled garden. Stablecoins open that up a little bit, but then the silos are more about like what stablecoin you're using or what blockchain you're on, and you have some limitations around that. What we've realized in our peer-to-peer payments app, which was our first application, was that a lot of users were like, texting each other to figure out what stablecoin or network they should use to be able to transact, and then bridging or swapping funds before they do the transaction, which is obviously not a user experience that can scale. And so what we've built is on the back end, we've built something that we call PayID, which is a universal stablecoin ID. It allows you to send any stablecoin on any network to that ID. The funds automatically settle in the recipient's preferred stablecoin. For instance, I can send you USDC on Base, and Ken, on the back end, you might say, I only want to hold USDT on BNB. And so as I send the funds, we convert those and the funds settle in USDT on BNB into your wallet. So that's great because it enables this like unified, very simple payment experience on top of all the different stablecoins, all the different networks. And then on top of that, we've built our own applications our peer-to-peer payments app, and obviously the Reva AI agent that we'll be demoing in just a little bit. The agent, I think the goal there is really like, how do we get as close as possible to like the user intent in terms of payment? I think there was a whole wave of like intense type of protocols, which were great. I think AI is almost like the ultimate intent interface, where you can literally just state what you want and the agent executes. So that's very much how we're thinking about it. And the goal is to be able to have that payment assistant live wherever you engage, right? And that might be Twitter, that might be WhatsApp, that might be Telegram, Discord, games, etc. Tirta, maybe I'll let you talk a little bit about the stack behind Reva.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adrian. I would love to pull back behind the curtain and talk about a few things. Is first of all, like when we started the project, we had three seeming requirements. First of all, we wanted something which is conversational, comes with natural language, not like chat-based commands. Something which is making things universal, basically working across multiple blockchains and also supporting necessary stablecoins, which is of a larger volume. And something which is instant in terms of learning curves and not something like a setup hell for users. So the problem is each of these requirements wanted to kill each other. And natural languages are ambiguous, universal protocols are complex, and the instant experience requires us to hide a lot of complexities. So most of the teams, probably they would have chosen one or two. We said, let's try to solve all three. Now, in hindsight, either this was a brilliant idea or it's completely insane, but let's talk more about that. So we have three primary layers that constitutes Reva. The first is the AI brain, which we're working with elizaOS. So the question there was that how do you make an AI that just doesn't understand words, but also understands the intent with money that we want to convey? And we looked through a lot of instantializations of chatbots and how traditional chatbots work. And clearly they didn't live up to our expectations or requirements. And eventually we came down to elizaOS. And this is something we think of as the operating system for AI agents. And the key breakthrough was to giving AI memory and context. And later you will see more that Reva not just understands what you're saying, but it remembers context about who your friends are, what kind of payment patterns you're following, what are your preferences, and if there are some kind of mistakes that you made in previously. So those kind of examples are certainly something big. Layer 2 comes down to our universal router, which is the PID. And this is something we have been working on over past 6 months and more. So here's the secret is that whatever brilliant engineering goes behind Web 2, Layer 2s, and cross chains, we all know that seemingly those end up becoming somehow incompatible. And integrating these various kinds of endpoints is so much complex. So PID solves this with what we call is programmable payment routing. So let's say when Alice registers something as an Alice ID, she's not just claiming a username, she's also trying to figure out a programming smart router for himself. We'll also maybe show in the demo like how these routings are working. And also these routers talk to our liquidity partners, the liquidity management systems, and they find the optimal path and try to bring you the best value across different chains and different liquidity pools. And the third layer,
Yeah, does that look more like a kind of traditional bridge, or is that like an intents-based solution, or is there any more you can share on that?
Yeah, sure. So routing is basically like a Web 2 layer of orchestration, and it prepares your transaction objects and meta objects that needs an on-chain execution. So on the on-chain side, you have your cross-chain bridge, your existing stacks and liquidity, but there's an algorithm that decides on, okay, which is the best selection out of all of these pools. And because these things change quite frequently, we need to find out the best real-time solution for this. So right now, the Reveel route, like the PID route, is at its primitive state, and we're just working with one liquidity partner. Eventually, this will evolve into a much more sophisticated and self-adapting solution. But in terms of like cross-chain, I would say, yeah, that's definitely exists. But the routing is more of a logic that decides where it needs to go. to begin.
I guess it's not quite agent managed if it's monitoring for liquidity routes, but is that enabled by AI in itself?
You can definitely ask AI to update and manage things accordingly. So the user can definitely provide like natural instructions in natural language that how they want to manage those routes, those paths, and those connections. And the agent can definitely on the back end kind of update all these configurations for you. So definitely that is AI driven, and the user does not have to concern themselves with going through configuring into like a complicated UI dashboard or something like that. So that's like the power play here that we're trying to do with combining the agent and PayID. And last but not the least, the third layer, which is obviously around wallet management. So we have worked with Privy for Reva, and they have provided us really good support in terms of enterprise grade security and to help us scale in terms of wallet management and security management on the wallet sides. And everything kind of ties down to into one solutions. I would have walked you guys down into like steps maybe, but I think the best would be to first go through the demo, and then maybe we will talk more about the steps. So I'll hand it over back to you, Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Tirtha.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just briefly talk about the roadmap, and then let's dive into the demo, because I think that'll be the best way to illustrate all this. We're at the very like early innings of what we see Reva as. You can think of it right now as primarily like text to pay, right? It's like being able to initiate a payment through a simple message. But the vision is a lot bigger than that. The next phase will really be around like how do we expand in terms of the payment surfaces and different type of use cases. And then from there, how do we make sure we scale in terms of integration into different applications and enable Reva to communicate not just with social media messaging apps, but eventually be integrated into gaming platforms and even communicate with other AIs. And that's where also the PayID plugin that we're building for the elizaOS framework, which I believe will be presenting next week, really comes into play in being able to offer PayID and that universal payment experience to any agent, really. So very excited about that. I think with that, we can conclude the presentation, and happy to jump into the...
I'll switch slides, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to go to the revapay.ai website. I'll show you what it's like to sign in, which is very simple. You can do it with an email. Let's do demo Eliza. Here we go. I will be getting a code in order to sign in. Let me just retrieve that. There we go. So that's pretty much it. With Privy, super simple to sign in, and I've created a wallet on the back end. I can now create my PayID, and so I'll just call it demo elizaOS. That is not taken, so I can register that. And that is my unique payment ID, meaning anyone who tags me with that ID and sends me any stable coins, I will automatically receive those. There we go. That's been registered. I will perhaps sign into my actual account before I show you the different routes that you can create in terms of enabling funds to arrive in a specific coin and on a specific network. So give me one sec here. All right. And again, grabbing the code. All right, cool. So now I'm logged into my actual account, and I've got my own PayID, which is Adrian on Reva, and I've connected my Twitter account here. If I click on routes, I'll be sent to the PayID dashboard and directly into the routes page. And this is where a user can create these preferences in terms of what they want to receive. This is basically saying any funds that are sent to my PayID, if it's this specific token on whatever specific network, I want it to be swapped into this token on this network, right? And so that makes sure that for every transaction that is sent to my PayID, the funds arrive the way I want it. I've already preloaded some funds here, and in the terminal, you can initiate a very simple transaction. So I'll say send one USDC on base to Aldo ETH. And there we go. And Reva should initiate that transaction. Takes a minute sometimes. There we go. Done. So that's super easy. That's in the terminal, but that's just the starting point. Because I've connected my Twitter account, I can go to Twitter and say, actually, I'll say, hey, Reva, send one USDC on base to, and I'll do Drather. There we go. I'll send funds to Andre. I don't even need to mention his pay ID. I can simply tag them. And because they have a pay ID tied to their Twitter account, the transaction should go through. Here, maybe we'll do this. And Reva should eventually respond with the status of the transaction.
Nice.
Again, sometimes takes a minute.
And what you're saying is that we live in an age of convenience, right? People want things quickly. They want to access and do things as simply as possible. And having that agent follow you around where you're playing, whether you're buying things, where you're shopping, maybe you're working, it's just super convenient, right? You're closing that and just making it even easier.
Exactly. And here the transaction seems to have failed, so maybe I'll give it another shot in a sec. But the goal indeed is that as people engage with their friends on, let's say, WhatsApp, Twitter, Telegram, etc., the need to have to switch to an application is a first pain point. But then those friends need to have the same application, which becomes rarer, especially when you are part of global communities. And so being able to just initiate a transaction directly on the platform you're in by tagging Reva is really what we're aiming for there.
Nice. From a fee perspective, so the swap from base into your, let's say you're on BSC, that's the chain you want your stablecoin to land into. How does that work? Who incurs the fee? What's the process there?
Yeah. Tirta, do you want to talk a little bit more about the fee structure?
Sure. So on the cross-chain infrastructure that we use currently with Decent, all the transactions, let's say, that happens between L2s, it happens through a regular cross-chain fee collection. So on your origin transaction side, there are certain amounts of transaction fees that gets accumulated basically to transfer it over to the bridge. And there are certain amounts that you would require on the destination side. And that destination and fee would also be like accounted for. And when you initiate the transaction, let's say you created a $1 transaction, it would probably add like maybe a very small fraction of 0.0002 cents as a fees. And that contains your bridging fee, it contains your transaction fee, everything combined. In terms of costing, it varies throughout the network that you're preferring to. So mostly in cases of L2s, it's pretty low. It comes down into cents, even for like larger volumes. So we don't have any major concerns about fee spike or something that would drain your wallet out of this. So that is a benefit with L2s. Probably if you're doing from like mainnet to L2, there could be a little bit of a barrier of a higher fee gap, but that is just for an L1 layer settlement. But for L2 to L2 conversations, the fees are pretty nominal.
Nice. Interesting. Is there more to demo? Is this
No, I think that the last point maybe I'll just show is because we've rolled this out, we've got a whole campaign and quest that users can participate in. We've got a token coming soon for Reva. And so obviously users who participate here will be part of the airdrop. Feel free to test it out and share your feedback because we're obviously iterating and learning on this.
Nice. Look, awesome product. Very nice to see. I've got a few like general questions, but I think just to those listening, the chat is quite active. I can see if there's anything that you want to ask to the team whilst we're just talking through for the next 10 minutes, please drop it in. For me, I'm wondering what areas are you most excited? I don't know if exploit is quite the right word, but from a UI, from an agent being able to integrate directly into the experience of a customer or from a workplace. What are you thinking from that perspective? What are you most excited about? What do you see as the biggest area to go after?
Yeah, I think we've taken the stance that consumer peer-to-peer payments is where we want to play. And this is, I guess, educated by the market in terms of seeing just the fierce competition that there is on stablecoin B2B transaction sides, where obviously Stripe acquiring Bridge has created a Goliath in that space, and it's going to be very hard to compete on the B2B transaction side. I think that in the consumer embedded transaction space, there is a real opportunity because most of the consumer solutions are standalone applications, Venmo, Cash App, and even in Web3, right? Sling Money, Demo, etc. Those are like standalone applications, often using a single stablecoin on a single network. And so we feel like there is an wide open space to provide embeddable infrastructure for peer-to-peer payments. And that's really what we're going after. Now, the use cases around peer-to-peer payments can be pretty broad. Sometimes it's just literally like a Venmo, a friend sending $20 for lunch or whatever it is, all the way to like remittances, right? I think with the integration eventually into different social media platforms, like for instance, WhatsApp, I think that'll be a great platform for remittance use cases, right? Because a lot of folks who move to a different country use WhatsApp to communicate with their family back home, right? And being able to easily initiate a transaction in WhatsApp to send money to someone, I think will be huge. So yeah, consumer peer-to-peer transaction is definitely the niche we're going after.
That UX unlock is I can't understate how big that really is. I did a project in 2021 or two, I can't remember, whenever the Bitcoin regulation came into El Salvador with a bank in El Salvador. And we really looked at how can an on-chain banking system really affect people who don't have access to loans or payments. And there are very high levels of smartphone adoption, but it's just too complex. Like people can't, a bank holding thousands, hundreds of thousands of security keys, having a security, it gets so complex so quickly. Yeah, I fully understand that kind of viewpoint, and it's exciting to see you building it. I think another question more on the technical side. So where was Eliza used? Maybe this will become clearer in next week's session from a plugin perspective, but where was Eliza used? Yeah, maybe within the front end, the UX, but also the plugin. Is there anything you can share from a payment perspective?
Yeah. So we did quite some explorations around, as I mentioned, chatbots and these development on AI tools, which are with chat interfaces. We needed something native, but not too much that we needed to invest too much time in terms of configuration of the private layer. What we more needed our involvement and our footholding was around the context and memory allocation, and also creating the intent strategy for Reva. So as we looked in, one of the most key trends of elizaOS is to build agents with unique personalities. And that is something I think stood out for us. And also we wanted to have something that would carry the Reva brand and the way we want to talk about intents and payments. On the elizaOS side, we had this opportunity to not just fine-tune at a deeper level, but also mold. We can just define each and every trade and transactions, the way the response should be, the way a transaction link should be shared, what should be a follow-up question for each and every transactions. If there's something of a data point that is missing within your instruction, Reva, with the help of elizaOS, can respond with a follow-up to you. And so these kind of situations definitely needs a very smart and intelligent layer for us to build on top of. And I think elizaOS has checked off every point of that. And when we worked on the plugin as well, and we'll show that to you soon, is that the simple instructions that we have added in the plugin, it would just allow any user who has built an agent on top of Eliza, if you're installing the plugin, the PID plugin into your system, you can just do a simple instruction of send X amount of payment to that person. Or, okay, I need to create some kind of an invoice maybe for some client. So I just share the PID with them and they can just send you directly with the proper tagging. So this smooth ease of transactioning and like the accessibility through social layers, this is something I guess Eliza has helped us tremendously to bring that vision and combine it together.
Nice. Awesome to hear. And I look forward to learning how people can use that plugin next week with the tutorial.
Yep.
So we'll run through how you can essentially make your agent now transfer stablecoin through a command. So yeah, pretty cool to see. can
And I think there's one last thing I want to add around the plugin, which is that we realize that even for agent to agent transactions, this might become super relevant as agents live on different ecosystems, right? And being able to facilitate identifying the agent, but then transacting with another agent across different networks, across different stablecoins is probably something that will be needed as the agentic economy just continues to grow.
Yeah. That routing infrastructure is potentially quite a big, it's an interesting way to go about it. So yeah, I was really interested in when you shared that. Yeah, I guess just before we wrap it up, is there anything that you'd like those watching to do? You mentioned your campaign earlier. Is there anything that they can plug into? Maybe they can get their hands on and test the product. Where would they go back for that put through?
Yeah, for sure. No, we definitely encourage everyone to test it out. You can simply either find RevaPay_AI on X, or just go to revapay.ai and create your account. It just takes a few seconds, and then play around with it. Please share your feedback. And if you want to participate in the campaign, that's obviously available through the application as well. We'll be sharing updates around the airdrop campaign very soon in the coming days and weeks. So yeah, we definitely encourage people to join the community.
Nice. And just before we close it off, you can catch this tutorial, or you'll catch this demo, I should say, on the elizaOS YouTube. This will be recorded, edited slightly, and uploaded shortly. So if you are watching if you do want to rewatch it or catch this later, there's a chance to do. But thank you so much for coming in, sharing what you've been up to. It's amazing to see that we're now in June, and projects that started life in December, January, which feels like a lifetime ago, are popping their heads up and sharing some amazing things. So it's genuinely nice to see, and I look forward to seeing what's next.
Thanks, Ken. It's been a pleasure to collaborate with the elizaOS team, and thanks for having us on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks.
Yeah.